Well, 22 300 cross trainer. Love this thing. Just back from the 4-day, literally. Still got a bit of monkey butt. Just decided that this would be a good thing to race. I've been involved with them for a year and a half now, the 21 model and now the 22. There's a few changes and found them interesting. But yeah, just a good way to get to know it is certainly ride the 4-day. It's been a few years since I've ridden the 4-day. So yeah, I was excited to do that, and what a great little bike, loving it. Yeah, the 4-day, as I said, was interesting. You know, just living with these things over a year and a half, the two models, they're similar in many ways. You know, they're probably saying they're changing a bit more than they are at the brochure, let's say. But yeah, gone through different developments and tried different suspensions and exhaust pipes and all that. And it's been an interesting process because in many ways I've done a full circle, and depending on what you ride, standard is actually really good. And you know, we have tried different suspension, as I said. I've tried solid disc, and I've tried the not the power valve, but there's a mod you can do to things. A lot of these things do add what they say, you know, like the pipe obviously makes it more of a harder hitting thing. But it all depends. These things are, everyone who's ridden these bikes, all my mates, everyone seems to love them, right? And around this area, which is kind of, I'm not going to say it's hard enduro like the grassroots stuff, but it's not easy. A lot of people can't do it. They hate it. There's a lot of ruts and roots, and it's wet, and there's hills and stuff like that. So it's bordering on bloody hard single track, and it's what we love. So for that sort of terrain, I always pick this bike. I love it, and in its standard form, it's not high speed. We feel like we're going fast for what we're doing, but it's not high speed. This bike handles that stuff unreal, you know. So once you start bringing out the stopwatch, which I've done, we've done a few back-to-backs with good riders like Stewie Morgan, and I've realised through those things that often the one that feels like it's, you know, slower is actually quicker. So yeah, that process led us up to, it's the first time I've raced the Beta, even though I've had them for that long. Then just decided, hey, the 4-day, unreal, it's on again, so let's go and do that. I thought about, I got a KTM 350 as well and a few other bikes. I thought about riding them, and then I thought if it gets really hard, which it can often do in the Vic sort of enduro events, and you know the weather's changing and it's getting cold and all that sort of stuff. So I thought if it gets hard, this bike would be better than anything else. So it's one reason I chose it and just went, yeah, let's go and do it. And it was a blast. It was great. Yeah, I had a ball. You're not allowed to use a pressure washer at the 4-day. And hey, I've only just unloaded it. You've got to give me a chance. But, you know, they keep going. They're fine. This thing, you know, it was freezing cold at the 4-day. That was the other thing. I mean, there was ice on the seats. It was a good, hard enduro. And, you know, you're on a line, you 3 rides a minute leave and all that sort of thing. As soon as you touch that button, this thing runs. It's carby, bloody, you know, it's a reliable little bike. I had no troubles, and it was just cool. I just hit the button and left first every morning, and the other guys are cranking and mucking around with things. You know, in comparison, it starts well. There's not a lot of things I don't like about this bike. There's very few. If we're going to talk about that, I've had little tiny things like as you can see, I've cracked this shroud. The shrouds I've been breaking. I'm a bit of an animal I wear knee braces, and I really grip the bike up in that area, and I certainly wreck, you know, shrouds and decals and stuff like that quicker than anyone else I know. Everyone's always laughing about that, but yeah, I've broken a few shrouds. It's hard to find something else that I don't like. The gear lever, I've bent a few of those, but that's just in the gnarly stuff that we ride in, I suppose. I've done a little mod on here to try and help deflect away from the gear lever. Basically though, it's got fuel, it's got oil injection, so I've left all that alone. I've had no issues at all with any of that, and so I've just put straight fuel in at the 4-day, and that makes things easier, because a lot of the bikes are 4-stroke. Your team are going, oh, is that too? No, mate, just put petrol in it, you know. So the way I kind of ended up on these Betas was, you know, I said to Pat, who's the importer, I was interested in the size, the 200, and I thought, how do I reinvent myself a bit and make it a bit more fun to just jump on something different? And he said, why don't you come along to one of the launches, you know? So this is back for the earlier ones, but this is the 22, of course. So I've ridden the 21, and I rode them all, and it really stood out for me. I was like, man, this thing is so easy to ride, so cool. So, you know, there's changes between the 21. I kept the 21, and then when I went to sell it, I've never had a bike like it. Everybody wanted to buy it. Anyone who'd ridden it wanted to buy it, so it was the easiest bike I've ever had for sale. I had 5 people in the end lined up for it, so it was kind of classic, and we're laughing and going, mate, you're 4th in line, and then another guy, you're 5th in line. So anyway, yeah, it's a popular bike. It's lightweight and it's easy to ride is obviously one of the key things. And if anybody comes riding with me and they're not into that hard stuff, if you put them on this, they get through it and they go, wow, that's all right. So yeah, it was interesting. The 4-day again was pretty, you know, gnarly. It had a lot of big hills and it was slippery as shit. It was terrible that way. I mean, we love it. That's what we do it for. We love that hard stuff. And it wasn't really until the last day, the final motor, that the thing opened up, and you know, it was quite an open grass track. So on the grass track was I went really well. So you can ride this thing not just in single type enduro tracks. It's not bad on a moto track. It's okay. That's probably its weakness. They've done an unbelievably good job of making it for its purpose, which is, let's say, single track kind of technical enduro. So if that's what you ride, this thing, I'm sure you'll like this thing. It's good. Obviously the 21 and 22 had some changes. Some of them were interesting. Shorter stroke motor. It's got a diaphragm clutch now. I've never looked in there, but I know through the Kato that it's a really strong clutch, and I'm a bit of a clutch abuser, so I go, well, that's a good thing. There's some power valve changes. I think the head changes. Anyway, it looked significant, and I'm not that techo guy who dwells on all that stuff. I just go, what's it like to ride? And I had both bikes still when I got this one, so it's like a good way to compare it. I had 21, I had 22, and at first the jetting was, I'd live up at 1100 metres, so usually got to change the jetting a bit, and I changed it on the 21, and then I introduced the 22 to it, and I found that even though the new one's got all these other things that are supposed to help it, it was different. Like on the 22, I was always in second gear with an occasional third, and on the other one I was in third with an occasional second, and I was going, oh, hang on, let's try and make them the same. So I jetted them the same, and then it made those influences across the board, and it was like, okay, now we're really testing more apples with apples. So in this higher altitude, you know, it was good, and the motor feels smoother, that's for sure. In the end, even though it's a shorter stroke, to me that's more top end and everything. The bike is all about really bottom end, and they've got so much smoothness and broad bottom end. That's one of the strengths of the thing. They certainly didn't lose that. It took me quite a few back and forths, and I was going, you know, there's not that much difference. But in the end I was going, yeah, it is smoother, and it even feels better down low. So, you know, and you can put a different pipe on it, and it's still good down low, and it hits harder, and you go, yeah, this is me. You put the stopwatch on and the technical stuff, and you go, no, you actually went backwards. So the bike is pretty bloody genius the way it's made. I think more people need to make something like this because the base is unreal. Suspension, I'm pretty happy with what you do. We have a moto track there too, and we've got a section, Bewley's Bumps. We named it after Jared Bewley, and it's a gnarly section. We keep it that way. And this thing is a bit limited in that. Okay, it's not that, you know, it's okay, but there's bikes that I've ridden that are much better than that through there, but you go, but hang on, that's more motocross. So again, we don't lose sight of the fact that this thing is made for what it is, and it's bloody brilliant for that. So it's one reason we choose it all the time. It's one reason why everybody wants to buy it from me when they ride it. It's a great little bike, and it's so light, you know, it feels good. You can stop it so quick, and there's a lot of things going for it. Yeah, but the changes are certainly a positive thing. It's not a really big deal, but it's in that positive better. It is an improved model, you know. Am I going to buy it? Yeah, for sure. You know, I've got a stable of other bikes. I mean, I buy everything now, and it's certainly for up here. You know, there's different areas, but for up here, I haven't found anything better yet. So for up here in these conditions, and my mates who I ride with up here, yeah, I'm buying this thing. I've already talked to Pat, and he said, yeah, cool, no worries. So, you know, I accidentally discovered a bike that suits me better for up in this area of riding than anything else. Well, and obviously they're a popular, it's not just me. As I said, I had all these mates trying to buy it. It's their most popular, as it turns out. I don't know much about this stuff, but I do know that if you look online, they're really hard to find these things for sale. I think a lot of people are just selling it to a mate. You know, there's not a lot for sale, but it's their biggest seller. So to me, all that stuff makes sense. It's a bloody great little bike for a lot of sort of conditions. And again, it depends on where you ride and who your mates are and where they ride, and that's such an influence on the whole thing. But yeah, bloody beauty for what I do.